What up, Agee?
What's up, Thrill?
Hey, man, listen. Today is this is a different show today, man. First of all, I love these kind of shows when we get to just be straight basketball. But what make this show today so different is because, man, I think what we're going to be talking about today,
Yeah.
man, it's just going to reignite a love, a passion for players of the past. I think today's episode can literally ignite a generation forgotten. That's how much I think about today's episode, because that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So today on the Agee and Gates Hoop Dreams podcast, we got a good one for you. We have two guests joining us. That's rare. We got two guests. They both are Duke Alumni. We ain't going to hold that against them, but they both are Duke Alumni. One is a former football player and a two-time, get this, AG, Emmy Award-winner filmmaker and director who has worked with everyone from NFL Films to NASCAR Productions to ESPN 30 for 30 franchise. And the other is a technology entrepreneur, film producer, and the co-founder with Hall of Fame coach George Carr of the production company Truth Plus Media. The two have come together to bring us the recently, and I think, outstanding docuseries chronicling the history of the ABA called Soul Power, the legend of the American Basketball Association. And get this, it's narrated by a local homeboy that we know and legendary rapper Common.
Yeah.
It's out now on Prime. If you haven't checked it out, you gotta see it. It has to be one of your must watch. We like to welcome to the show director. I'm gonna call him Special K because he called his boy 24K. We gonna keep it there. But we got Kenan Holley and Brett Goldberg on the show. Fellas, welcome, man. Glad y'all are here.
Yeah, thank you, Jens. Thank you, man. It's an honor. It's an honor to be sitting down with you too, man. Like I said, I told you. Yeah, you guys are legends. You guys are legends. I'm honored.
I will echo that. This is just weird. It's weird in a cool way, and getting to know Arthur a little bit the last few weeks, having him reach out and say, "Hey, I liked your docuseries," hit a little differently for us. The two of us have been fans of you two and what you did back in the day, as a real source of inspiration for a long time. So this is a fun conversation to have.
Beautiful.
Yeah, before we jump into the film, I just got to throw this out there. How did y'all connect? I mean,
that's funny. I'll start that one. It was we were at Duke. I love football. I'm from Texas. Football is my entire life. We just lost every game in the season at Duke. I never had a losing season before I got to Duke in my life, and I was hurt so bad. And I used to make films in high school. And I was like, man, I got to get back to filmmaking. So I'm at the computer cluster doing my paper. Two kids in front of me are talking about doing a sports show. These two dudes are like, man, we got to get this sports show going. Man, it'll be great. But we lost our audio guy. If we just had an audio guy, we got a shoot coming up tomorrow. We need an audio guy. And I'm standing there like, oh, God, I couldn't ask for a better situation. I put my arms around him and said, what's up? I know how to do audio. I can do audio. Hey, Agee, William, I didn't know nothing about audio. I was like, what's up? I was like, I got you. I got you covered.
Yeah.
And that was one of those guys. One was Ben Tischler, our homeboy who writes movies right now in Hollywood. Another was Mr. Brett Goldberg, who I call 24K, who's sitting with us right now. And that was 30 years ago, Brett. How long ago was that?
Right around there, 29, 30 years ago, right? Somewhere right there. It is, I'll tell you guys, I can picture it. I can picture it. It was if like the skies had opened, we were inside, but if the skies had opened and the ceiling had cracked open, that felt like a moment. It was a weird moment. You don't know what those moments are in life, but I would tell anyone, young people listening, like, notice those moments. When you feel them, there might be something more to that. And in Judaism, we call it bashert. It could be called karma. It has a variety of different things to it, but I remember it vividly. And that was the beginning of a friendship and a partnership. And when George and I decided, which we'll get to, but when we decided to do a real story, a true story about the ABA, Kenan was the first call I made. I said, I would only want to do this with you. You're ready to do it. You understand the heart, the spirit, the soul of it. And here we are.
Now, Brett, were you studying film in college, or?
No, I didn't. And it's funny, man. I had a creative passion. I had a creative energy, and I grew up, just so into sports storytelling. I watched the sports reporters every Saturday morning. I was huge. I can remember receiving Sports Illustrated as a kid and just waiting, every Friday after school to open it up and read it from cover to cover. And so there was something in that for me that was real. Duke it was just like a playground of high-tech gear in the 1990s for us to do avid filmmaking and all kinds of stuff. And so they were like, have at it, use the cameras, do whatever you want. And so Ben and myself and Kenan and a couple of other friends of ours started making basically call it like a Sports Center, ESPN like Sports Center type of show.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I stepped away from that for a long time. I was gone from it for a long time. But when I met George here in Denver, Colorado, where I'm based, he spoke at some leadership event that I was at. And I walked up to George Carl, and the first thing he said to me was, fuck Duke. And the second thing he said to me, and the second thing he said to me was, we should maybe, tell some stories together. I got a lot of stories to tell. And I said, okay, well, let's go get some coffee or tea or figure some stuff out. And we started talking, and that became my entree through podcasts and otherwise to get back into this. Maybe I should have never left it, or maybe I'm glad I did, because it's been real meaningful to be back in it and get to work with special, amazing, talented people like Kenan again.
How much of, and this is for both of you guys, how much of your love for sports plays a role in what you do?
It's everything to me. For me, I played every sport growing up. You know how we were, our generation, we played everything. So you played, baseball, football, basketball, ran track, you did everything. And so you understood sports. I don't think of sports from the inside. I was thinking from an athlete's perspective. And so I, like Brett, was in a kid, watching NFL films as a little dude on Saturdays and Sundays. I wake up and sit next to my dad. My dad would watch every sport, including hockey. We watched the Olympics. We watched everything. And he'd be breaking it down, commentating. He'd be talking shit to the screen. And like, I could see his passion for it. And like, it means this much to people. And I always, just loved the lessons of sports. It's the one place in life where we got a scoreboard. You don't got to argue about, like, you and your boys didn't have to argue about who was the best. When you're growing up, like, you prove it every week. Every weekend you go to the park and prove it. Unlike everything else, even school, you don't really know what other grades people are getting. Or if you go to a corporate job, you don't know who really is a great accountant or not. You don't really know who's the best lawyer, in the office. But you know who's the best basketball player. You know who's the best football player. Something about that objectivity made me fall, and the drama of it made me fall in love with sports, man. And so it's everything. When it comes to doing these projects, it's what speaks to me. When I see the stories come out of a Rick Barry or Spencer Haywood, Julius Erving, you see their accounts of what's happening on the court. You can't lie. The scoreboard don't lie. And so that's what made me fall in love with it when it comes to storytelling, made me lean into sports storytelling.
I'll just say I was, I'm like 5'9.5" now. So I knew pretty early on that I wasn't getting NIL contracts or something of that equivalent, right? I mean, I was a very good lacrosse player growing up. I was that. And lacrosse actually has a lot to do with basketball. There's very similar ways in which the sports operate. So basketball I loved, but I knew I wasn't going to play at a place like Duke. That was very clear very early. But I loved I loved like the Frank DeFord stories. I loved the character stories. I loved the pieces. I loved the hoop dreams, which to me wasn't about the basketball. It was about you guys, growing up and your experiences and the trials and tribulations. And that was what really spoke to me. And it's funny because I have a son in high school now, and he's a junior in high school, and almost everything we talk about is sports, but it rarely is sports. It's like sports as metaphor or sports as analogy, or he'll be going through a hard time after a game where he didn't feel like he played as well or whatever. And I'm like, let's just talk about this from the context of life and character and soul. And so George was really, I owe him so much for helping bring me back into this world. And one of the first things he said to me was, the best stuff, the best stories, the best things in life, the best sports stories are both soulful and spectacular. And when you find that blend of those two things, you really got something. And I think if you look at it under that lens, so much of that is there. And I think we might have, time will tell, but I think we might have captured both of those elements in Soul Power, which is why it's speaking to people.
Well, absolutely, without a doubt. How did you guys, because obviously after college, you both go separate ways, I'm assuming. How did you maintain this friendship in a sense? Because there's guys that Agee and I played with in college, and we probably have not kept up with them like we should. How did you all maintain, that level of friendship that you have that, Brett, he's the only person I thought of. How did you maintain that?
Yeah, I'll say Brett's a great connector. I think I'm like you guys. A lot of times we have our boys and we don't talk to them for years, could be a decade. Then you see them and you're like, it's like nothing ever parted y'all. But if we don't see each other that much, we don't take that much effort. I think girls do a way better job of keeping up with their friends than guys do. And a lot of times former athletes, we go at life like every year is a new season and we kind of forget the past and move forward. I have a habit of doing that, but Brett's a great connector. And so before we even got to this movie, years before that, when I was getting married in 2018, and he would come to town, he'd be, "What's up? I'm coming to town. Let's go get dinner." So we went out get dinner in Charlotte, and we just hanging out. Then he came to my wedding in New Orleans. That was 2018. That was 4 years before we did this project. And so he kept us connected in that way. So when he called and he was working on stuff, he's really good at just constantly reaching out to people. Arthur, you find that out, right? He's constantly good at keeping that connection going. And so the connection was warm. So when he called, it was like, "Yo, I got a potential idea." It wasn't like we need to catch up. We already were caught up. And so we could focus on the idea. So that's all 24K on that one.
I appreciate that. And K Holley is one of the most present, focused dudes that I've ever met. And that is mostly a compliment. It also means he can go off the grid for like 2 or 5 years at a time. And to hear from K Holley, because he's in his element, he's focused on his family, he's focused on his work, whatever he's doing. So it's not been a continuous stream of us talking every day for 30 years, nothing like that. I mean, and that's impossible to keep up in our lives. Like, right? We just can't do that. But to his point a little bit, I do have a little bit of a skill to sort of recognize things and moments and people and timing. And maybe there was a little bit of, greater force going on in terms of us reconnecting as we did in 2018 and 2019. But in getting back into sports storytelling, I just knew this was someone in Kenan that I needed to have on my team, on my side, be partners with. And so there were things that came up. We did an awesome interview with someone you'll really appreciate. This was right after the George Floyd stuff. This was George Carl and I sat down with Darvin Ham. This was all the stuff after the George Floyd stuff. And Darvin is a great, great man. He is a great person. And he shared some stuff that was so profound. And it didn't even, as a white person, it didn't even fully register with me. I was like, I don't even know if I fully understand this. So I looked to Kenan to kind of go teach me some of what he's saying here, teach me some of what these experiences are like. And that's just, I maybe have some skills there, but I'm mostly just also curious. And so, in someone like Kenan, I've looked to him as a friend at times, as a partner at times, as a mentor at times. And that allowed us to kind of go, oh yeah, no, ABA, Soul Power, there's only one person on this planet, I believe, is truly capable of capturing the essence of this, and it's the other man on the riverside with us.
No, Agee and I definitely understand that, man. Folks always ask, "Man, when last time you seen Agee?" I'm like, "Man, I haven't seen Agee in 5-6 months." You think we talk every day, but what we have bonded is, first of all, it's a brotherhood. But what we also bonded within that brotherhood is that we don't attack each other. We in full support of each other. We love each other on that level where we recognize, hey man, we're going to pick up where we left off at. And then we'll catch up and bring it all together. So I definitely understand that. My next, because I want to move into the film. My question is though, man, and I just got to ask this. What, like we always ask the athletes this or folks on like, what was that? Like if you was hooping, we said, man, who's that dude that gave it to you? Or what was that game that broke you out that you like, man, I know I can do this. My question for you is, what was the film that you said, you know what? Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
Kenan, you go first on that. I'll have a related one to share in a second. I know what it was, but Kenan, you do you first from a film and storytelling standpoint.
And where was you at? What year? What was you doing?
Yeah, it's like that I can hoop moment. I can hoop. You know what? I can actually hoop. It's like, for me, it was 2000. It was Steve Sable's NFL Films. And at NFL Films, there's like a hierarchy of, you get to work on the better projects the older you get. And I was young. I just got there straight out of college. And Steve saw me write. He saw me write. So y'all know the voice of NFL Films, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And it's very poetic. Yeah. And when I was in college, my number one thing was I was doing film and I was rapping. And so I was writing every day, writing poetry every day. So that my writing game was so strong that when I got to NFL Films, I just took that same skill, that rap artist skill, and brought it to the screen with them. And Steve, I gave him the utmost respect and a big acknowledgement when it comes to my career. And what made my career is he saw that and he acknowledged it. And he said, oh man, I'm looking at your stuff because you get terrible assignments to a rookie. Like I get to do like the Cincinnati Bengals highlight film. They be like 2-14, be their record. That's kind of stuff they give you when you first get there. But I stay up all night writing it, making it poetic, and I'd be finding the music in the background because at NFL Films they make you do everything. So I had to find the music, but I put the music in that would give me room to write, so they sound more like lyrics. And he watched it, which I was shocked because he's the president of the company, the founder, him and his dad Ed. And he came to my office and said, "Hey man, I see what you're doing. You can really write. Come here, come with me." And he took me to his office to this guy Kenny Smith, who's like Bob Smith. Bob Smith is this dude who everyone was scared of. The young people were scared of. He had all these gargoyles in his office. His office was pitch black. We went in there, and there's gargoyles, hundreds of them all over. And no one wanted to work with him. They were all scared of him. He was kind of mean too, but he was brilliant. And he didn't like to write. That's the only thing he didn't like to do. He's like, "I'm putting you two together. You're in this office for the rest of the year." And he put me in there with Bob Smith. And I sat in there, and Bob would make these great movies, but with no writing. He leaves space me, and I write. And that launched my career because Steve let me write some of the best stuff. Like I got to write some of the best things the year 2000 for NFL Films as a 23-year-old. And he gave me that chance. He didn't judge me by my age. He didn't judge me. Some people, when you're a former athlete, particularly when you're an African-American former athlete, they think the last thing you can do is write.
Yep.
That's the last thing you're going to be good at. And he saw it and didn't give me no judgment and gave me that chance. And that was that moment I was like, okay, if Steve Sable believes in me, maybe I should believe in myself. So that really launched me right there.
I mean, I think Kenan just spoke to this, but I think what you're asking about here a little bit is like, is sort of that right level of confidence, right? Like that ability to believe in yourself enough that you can do that thing, you can take that step, you can move to that next level. And there's a lot of things I could talk about in the past, but in the world of what we're speaking about right now, George Carl's son, Kobe Carl, who has become a good friend of mine, played for Phil Jackson, the great Phil Jackson, as a Los Angeles Laker for a short period of time. And then he developed a really close relationship with Phil Jackson. So we were working on a podcast back in 2021, right after the pandemic. And Kobe said, I would really like us to interview Phil Jackson. I don't know if he's got a lot of energy to do a lot more interviews like this, a lot of sit down interviews like this. He's getting older, whatever. We need to sit down with Phil Jackson. And I was like, okay, let's go sit down with Phil Jackson in Los Angeles. And I remember Phil Jackson walking in and going, holy cow. Not only is he a very tall man and a big man, but I mean, he is, I don't need to tell you guys who and what Phil Jackson is. And getting through that interview, doing that, sitting down with him, feeling comfortable enough in myself to, be part of that, interview him, produce that, help share his story was a real breakthrough for me. That if I could do that with Phil Jackson, I could do that with Dr. J. I could do that with Common. I could do that with Rick Barry. And I would say probably, Kenan, I don't know if you'd agree, but probably my most important responsibility in the making of Soul Power was bringing those those people together and preparing them and saying, all right, we're going to sit down with Rick Barry now, or we're going to sit down with Doc now, or we're going to sit down with Bob Costas now, and being able to sort of prepare them and prepare our crew and bring the right elements together. You know, they call that sometimes like a booking producer or a talent producer or whatever. But in this case, it didn't feel transactional to me. It felt really important, and I felt very well prepared to do that in a way that I think helped translate to the success of the production in a meaningful way. Kenan, would you agree with that in terms of just kind of that ability to connect those people into this in the right ways?
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I look at like a basketball team. Brett plays point guard for us. He sets the whole thing up. We got another partner named Todd Lieberman, who's a big-time Hollywood producer, does a lot of scripted films, real successful scripted films. He's our center. I say if we were a team in the ABA, we're like the Kentucky Colonels. And Brett is Louis Dampier. He's running the show. He's making things happen from distance. And Todd is Artist Gilmore. Anytime some bullshit arises, he's swiping that out the air. He's keeping it free to work, you know? And so that makes it where me as the director, all I got to do is score. All I got to do is score, because I don't got to worry about who's going to show up, or who we have coming to set. Will they be on time as far as the scheduling? Do we have enough people lined up for this visit to Indianapolis when we go to Indy? Are enough guys coming? Like, Brett has all that handled. And all the bigger picture network stuff, Todd has all that handled. So I just got to create. That's my job, is to score. And so when you got those teammates right, you guys know when you're doing it all yourself, you can do it all yourself, but you don't do it as well. It wears you down. It makes you, you're using too many parts of your brain, and the part that you've really been gifted with, the part that God gave you that makes you special, you can't really shine it all the way because you're doing other things. And Brett was so good at just orchestrating from the point guard position that I didn't have to think about orchestrating, which I do on some movies. I have to orchestrate and score. But this time I just had to score, and it made it so much easier. I come in those days, those shoots with Rick Barry, and I'd be so focused. Like he said, I like to be locked in and focused, because I was taught never have any notes. That's what they taught me in NFL films. I don't care how many people you're interviewing, how long, you never have notes, nothing written down, no notepad. So we'd be interviewing people for 8 hours some days, 5 interviews, 8 hours, 10. And I'd be sitting there with my the other producer, Tony Corrado, would sit next to me. He'd be my reminder. I was like, did I forget anything? And he hit me, you got to get this, this, and that. But we never had any notes for all those interviews. So we were going through all that 1967 history, 1968, but we need to have it all up here, because you all know when you don't have notes, and you're just talking with somebody and they see you don't have any notes, it changed the whole tone of the conversation. So, so we had a great team, man. Like I said, and Brett ran the show. He's the glue running the show for us.
But that I mean, you see what Kenan just did there. That was sports metaphor, and I knew exactly what he was talking about. I know exactly what it means. You guys certainly do too, obviously. But it's like, but when you're on a special team, when that team is going to compete, whether it's on the court or talking about some example like making a film or making a sports production. And we knew as the pieces, there was a moment where we were like, I don't know about Todd Lieberman. Kenan's like, I don't know, do we need this person? And then it was like, oh yeah, no, we need that guy. We need that center, that Artist Gilmore, to complement the other roles on this thing. And everyone came in very egoless, very team oriented, and George Karl as a coach in part has, people know this or that, or they say this and that about George Karl, but one thing that is the truth is the man is all about team. He is all about winning. He learned that from the great Dean Smith and at University of North Carolina. The Carolina way is about team first, egoless. And so George is that kind of, ambassador. Was like, there's not going to be any ego. Everyone is playing your role. And if I see any ego, we're going to have problems. And everyone was marching to the beat of, the same drum, playing their roles in the right way.
Wow.
I'm loving it, man. Before we get into Soul Power, we gotta, I just gotta say this, man. 40 minutes of hell. Yeah. Come on now. 40 minutes of hell. Yeah. Listen, that was incredible. The Nolan Richards story. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Man, talk about that.
I'm going to tell you something that's real about that. That was a tough time in my life. I was going through a lot in my family life, and I didn't have so much energy to put into the film. And there was a moment at the very start. This is real. I did that film from NASCAR. I was actually working at NASCAR. Me and Rory Karp, who's a great director, great filmmaker. He made Coach Snoop. He made Nature Boy Ric Flair. He made He made I Hate Christian Laettner. He has so many movies.
Wow.
Yeah, he made The Book of Manning. Like, he's an incredible filmmaker. Also, we started our first NFL film together. One of my best friends, and so we were sitting there together. He knew what I was going through, and he and I were talking. He could see how much I was having on my life. And he left the office, the studio, and I'm sitting there in this big studio, beautiful studio, in front of all this equipment, and they were just the start of 40 Minutes of Hell. And I said, God, listen, you see what I'm going through. I was like, I'm gonna let you, for the first time, you make this movie through me. You make this movie through me. This is your movie. I'm going to be your instrument. You make this movie through me. That's the first time in my career, in my life, I ever said that. And the way that movie unfolded was just so poetic. It has such a flow to it that I've tried to employ that in everything else I've done in my career from that moment, because that movie just it just flowed. And that was the start of it, including all the interactions with Nolan Richardson, who's a tough man. That's a tough individual right there. And just winning him over, getting him on my side so he could tell his story took some work. But once we got it done, he was just great, man. He was one of my favorite people ever. And I still talk to Coach. I still call Coach from time to time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I still talk to him. And that was like 14 years ago, and I still reach out to him, man.
Beautiful.
This is a side note. All of my boys played for one of his assistant coaches, Ron Cottrell.
Okay.
Yeah. So they all played for him.
One of the guys, one of the guys that's that was in the 40 Minutes of Hell, Russ Bradberg.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's Chicago connected all the way. That's great. He was talking about you. I just remember that he was talking about bringing all y'all guys from Chicago to New Mexico and UTEP and out to that part of the country, out to those conferences out there. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah. Russ was a big advocate of Nolan and the whole 40 Minutes of Hell thing.
Yeah, man. That was a great experience.
Let's jump into it. Soul power.
Yes,
First of all, I just got to say this, man. There were things that I didn't know, and I'm just talking about some simple things, because I'm just going to start with one of the obvious things, but it's some things that, like, we always say big fro doc, look fro doc, but people forget when he first went to Philly, he still had a big fro. You know, it's like, it's like those kind of subtle things that this movie kept giving and giving. So, how did this come to be? Because this is almost like it's a love child in a sense. Like, how did this come to be?
I'm gonna let Brett tackle that, because he called me, so he was the impetus and George Carl was the impetus. They were the spark. So I'm gonna let you hit that one, Brett.
One of the very early things in those early storytelling conversations that George kept saying to me, more so than he said, Dean Smith in Carolina, more so than he said Seattle and the Seattle Supersonics, more so than he said some of his experiences, which were incredible when he was coaching in Spain, Real Madrid, Drazen Petrovic, all that stuff. He said, I'm an ABA guy. He said, and it really upsets me. It really pisses me off that the ABA has not gotten the shine that the ABA deserves. And I heard it a few times, and I listened to it, and I'll be honest, I kind of blew it off a little bit. Like it's too old. It's not interesting enough. There's not going to be enough of an audience for it. It's not going to work. And then he said to me, he goes, hey, could we get Dr. J one time? I knew him a little bit. Obviously, he knew him more. He said, "Can we get Dr. J on our podcast? I'd like to wrap some ABA with him." And I said, "We could probably make that happen." And so we got Dr. J on, and I didn't know for sure what they were going to talk about, how much ABA they were going to discuss, and they spent almost the entire hour talking about the ABA, and they're talking about names and Willie Wise and Jimmy Jones and Matt Calvin and this and that, and I'm going, I'm a huge basketball person. I grew up in Denver in the 1980s and 1990s. So this was just a little bit before that, not way before that. And you're mentioning names of people I've never heard of. So what the hell's going on here? Like, there is more to this than maybe we have been allowed to see. And we'll come back to that if we have time. But that conversation with the two of them, where I'm just sitting there like, I don't even know what you're talking about or who you're talking about, was the real spark. And I was like, okay, wait a second. I think not only are you telling these fascinating stories that are going to really appeal to hoops people and hoops historians, But as they started talking about, you know, the use of the fast break and the slam dunk and the existence of the 3-point line and all these things, they kind of kept going, that's the modern NBA. That's the way the game is played today. That's it. We changed the game and we made it from this slow moving, you know, get the ball into the center to this fast paced guard first, wing first kind of display that you certainly see today.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, maybe we should really make a run at this. Maybe there really is something to this that can appeal to the contemporary as well as the historical. And that was the driver. Now, other things like the name and stuff, which we can get into, that was part of the unfolding, right? Like I didn't call Ken and go, well, we've got a story, it's fully baked, you just need to put a bow on it, it's called Soul Power. No. Like that was the birth of the love child, as you say. But wow. The impetus was what I described.
Hey, let me say this to you guys, because, and I'm gonna put a visual to it, because what you guys did with this film, it's like, just picture the ground and there's a sewer top, and it has ABA on it. And sitting on top of the sewer is the NBA. What you guys did was stuck a fucking Slim Jim or a damn crowbar into the top of the sewer, lifted that motherfucker up off of it, and all these stories came out. I'm talking about personal stories. I'm talking about eye-opening things that a young basketball player, dad probably never told him, but your movie did. And that's what the ABA, that's what the Soul Power did for me. When I saw it, I've seen it 3 times, all the episodes. So, I mean, from John Brisker to all the, I mean, Warren Jabali. I mean, what?